So, hi everybody. Again, my name is Kim Martin. I am a Sidebar member. I am one of the volunteers that also does the Sidebar Speaker Series. I facilitate a lot of these amazing experts, industry leaders, and thought provokers that are coming in to Sidebar to speak and teach us. In addition to that, for those of you who are not familiar with who Sidebar is, we are a referral and invitation led community where we are built on the values of generosity, growth, trust, transparency, and we are on a mission to unleash everyone's full potential in their professional and personal life. For me, Sidebar has been more than just a community. It has been an opportunity to build some really meaningful relationships. I realized that after spending 25 plus years in corporate America, that the types of relationships I had were very much built on just the job that I had. So for me, I would leave each company with maybe two or three actual real relationships. And I'm so incredibly grateful to say that in the past year that I've been with Sidebar, I have had that multiplied times three or four. So for me, my professional relationships now are long lasting and extend well beyond any company or role that I might temporarily hold. So if you're interested in Sidebar, please feel free to reach out to me. I know, David, you wanted to reach out, so send me a chat. Happy to connect with you. Also, very excited to introduce Amanda Richardson, who is the CEO of CoderPad. CoderPad is the leading platform for assessing and interviewing technical or engineering talent. They are trusted by some pretty big names, companies like Apple, Meta, OpenAI, Goldman Sachs, and Tesla. You know, just some little names that we've heard here and there. Amanda specifically has had a front row seat with over 3,500 customers to understand how AI is reshaping the way companies are hiring, assessing, and developing their technical teams. She brings nearly 20 years of product management and software experience, having led her own team, served as an executive at Hotel Tonight, Prezi, and Snapjob before most recently joining CoderPad as their CEO, although recent, not really, it's been 6 years, but I think I just said that. So you hold Amanda, a BS in commerce from the University of Virginia and an MBA from Stanford. What else do you want to share, if anything else about yourself?
Oh, well, that's a good introduction. But honestly, when you say I've been doing this for 20 years, I feel all the wrinkles you see on my face. And I guess I would also share I live in San Francisco with a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old, which is the job I'm probably not most equipped to do, but trying the CEO hustle on the side between managing the kids. So that is my life. Thank you for that nice introduction. It's an honor to be here. I gave a similar version of this talk at the Sidebar in-person conference a couple of months ago, and we had just an incredible conversation. And I will share this is not a presentation. Presentations are when I talk at you and I present my knowledge and my findings. I don't think anybody knows what's going on out there. And even as I updated this from a couple months ago, I was just struck by how the stories are changing, the tone is changing, what's going on. So I invite you to the discussion. I echo the comments about turning your camera on. I can talk to myself on video all day long because, that's what Zoom life is from home, but I prefer to see people rather than me smiling. But why am I here? What is inspiring me about this topic? So I spend a lot of time, the bulk of my day talking with companies, learning what the leading companies are doing around jobs and roles with AI. As Kim introduced, we lead. We are the platform of choice for developer hiring. So we work with OpenAI, we work with Harvey, we work with kind of name your frontier lab. We work with them. We work with the Facebooks, the Apples, the LinkedIn's. We work with the Teslas, the Groks, the SpaceX's. So I feel like I spend most of my day talking about how engineering roles are changing. And I'm happy to talk about that. That I feel actually I could present on. But the conversation that no one's having that I think we as managers and leaders need to have is how our role is changing. So much time and energy gets spent thinking about what is happening to the individual contributors. And I for sure think that's important, but I think things are going to go well for them and they're going to be fine. And I think honestly, a lot of you, your jobs are at risk. And how you did your job as a leader and a manager, maybe even 2 years ago and definitely 5 years ago, is changing dramatically. And I think obsolescence for this middle management layer, the great flattening, as I like to call it, is upon us. So I want to start with a little bit of my context for having that hypothesis, share what I think a leader needs in terms of skills, get your feedback along the way, and certainly try to have a bit of a conversation around what people are doing to stay helpful and relevant to these scaling teams, but also frankly survive and thrive in a world where AI is frankly doing a lot of what managers used to do. So that's my starter. I'd like to begin by just getting a pulse of the room now, because 2/3 of you who I'm now going to shame are not turning on your cameras. You're making it very hard for me. Thank you, Graham. Welcome. You're making it very hard for me to make this an engaging, interactive conversation, which is what I know Sidebar likes to have. So I guess, where are you in your team's AI usage right now? I guess the four choices, and I'm going to ask for just a show of hands because the Zoom polling feature is kind of annoying to use. We've got skeptical, we're not doing it. Legal won't let us do it. Someone will let us do it. Exploring, we're playing around with stuff. Adopting, you've got some shared workflows, tooling, maybe you've standardized. Well, you have to have standardized on some workflows. And then scaling, like AI is embedded within the team. It is our go-to place to be. So who out there is skeptical? Raise your hands. Let me see what you got. All right, I like it. Good, good, good. Okay. Who's exploring? This is where we're trying to figure it out, what's going on. All right, I got a couple more hands. Who's adopting? You've got shared workflows, shared tooling. Maybe we think we're adopting. Okay. Okay, good, good, good. And who's really scaling? We've got it embedded within the team. It's the core of how we work. It's where we go. Maybe a few proud shoulders, which will give us, those soldiers will give us all the answers. All right, Lucas, thank you. We're going to call on you for all the answers. So what is the data showing right now in terms of managers? Well, the past couple of years have a number of pieces of context. There's certainly, the massive surge in tech hiring that happened around 2020, 2021, early 22. Whether we call it the COVID era or the zero interest rate ZERP era, that's where we were. And then, interest rates went up and the market slowed, and the request for the expectation of profitability came along with the launch of ChatGPT. So we've got a number of factors. But what the data is showing, that we've seen a 3x surge in manager layoffs. I'm sure you all have friends and peers who have been laid off. And even manager hiring at the same rate has been cut in half. So we're laying off managers and we're not hiring them back. 41% of companies trimmed their management layers in 2025. That's almost half of companies. So if your company didn't trim management layers, the other people on this call's companies did. We see positions not being backfilled, and just globally, or not globally, nationwide, but like overall total companies, the percentage of people employed in a manager role has fallen 6% over 3 years. Well, there's a little bit more data that's almost a little crazier as you think about the survivors. There are 44% more ICs per manager at companies over the last 3 years. Anybody feel that? Who has more direct reports than they did before? 2, 3, only 3 of you? Okay, where do the rest of you work? Because I want a job there. I personally have gone from 7 direct reports to 12. So I see this happening a lot. The average number of direct reports, maybe I'm on par, has gone from 10.9 a year ago to 12.1. And 20% of companies had said they were going to remove middle management this year because of AI. Whose company has removed middle management because of AI? There we go. Only one. That's interesting because there's a lot of headlines out there. So let's talk about these companies, because these are the stories, and this is where I spend a lot of my time. So Block, Jack Dorsey famously had done, I think they'd laid off 1,000 people last year. And then at the start of this year, in February, they eliminated 4,000 roles, almost half the company, and decided that they were also going to just flatten the organization. And he wanted mega managers, up to 100 direct reports. Oh, okay. We got chat activity, which is great. But I am going to have a hard time managing chat. And
I got you,
um,
Amanda.
okay, great. Yeah. Kim, call on me, or you guys jump in. Like, again, I want this to be a discussion. Coinbase, newer story. So this one happened a couple weeks ago. They've eliminated every pure manager role. You're now expected to be a player coach. They've capped the number of layers between the CEO and the rest of the organization. 700 people were eliminated. This was, again, a couple weeks ago, where every manager is now expected to have both a manager role as well as their direct output, their direct thing that they're doing. And I think we are going to see more and more of that as the expectation. Um, Jensen from NVIDIA, I found this interesting. It didn't get a lot of headlines. People were kind of like, oh, yeah, that's normal. He has 60 direct reports. I was curious how you could have 60 direct reports and get through your day, but he really runs no one-on-ones. And every meeting he has, specifically topic based or initiative based, or has a problem. And it's mostly around bringing the people together, together into the room. So if you think about his role as like coordination and problem solving and unblocking, he just does that for the 60 people who report to them and really tries to co-design management across the organization. I don't know how he does it with 60 direct reports, but I think there's a strategy there that we all should adopt. And then there was a really good example. This was Cloudflare. I think probably most people saw this. This was a Wall Street Journal op-ed piece he wrote, the CEO wrote a couple weeks ago after they had done a massive layoff, where he talked about three types of employees or three types of workers: the builders, the sellers, and the measurers. And, as someone who spends a lot of time with developers who maybe arguably are the quintessential builder, he argued that the job is going to be fine, which I actually am seeing. We are seeing a massive spike in developer hiring at companies like Meta. Meta was mentioned, and I would echo that. We are seeing big, initiatives to hire more builders, get more output, more features, more efficiency. But at the same time, the measurers are the ones being eliminated. So these are the people who do the reporting, the coordination, the operations, the project management. The quote he had is, as CEO, I've never had better AI tools to measure exactly how the business is performing, including identifying rising stars. So he's eliminated the people who would do this work for him before and is now having the tooling and the systems do this. So I bring this up because I think the measurer is a lot of what, I'll speak for myself, it's a lot of what I brought on as a manager and is what I grew into the role to be. I also think there's an interesting trend. Who's heard of AI washing? Is that a new term? Some people. So if you think of greenwashing, which was like a thing 10 years ago, AI washing, now, every time in an attempt to, this is my cynical point of view, in an attempt to curry favor with investors or people, everything AI is cool again. So you want to work yourself into the AI story, but at the same time, you need to eliminate costs and eliminate some of the spend for the company. And so in order to appear both AI savvy as well as make the moves, people are AI washing their layoffs. And I for sure have seen this. We work with companies who have done massive layoffs. We have called that company after they've done layoffs. And certainly as the platform who does interviewing and assessing, we think, oh my God, it must be awful. Like, is everything okay? And more often than not, the answer is, oh, we're going to hire back all those roles. We're just going to hire people with AI skills. Or we're going to hire back ICs who are builders instead of managers. Or we're going to hire back people who are willing to use the technology as opposed to those who are maybe reluctant to use the technology. So also important fact, I got this from I'm pretty sure it was the Wall Street Journal, 32% decrease. It was the median stock performance for the companies who have announced layoffs year to date. So for everybody who's saying, oh, I was just talking to a customer the other day who was, saying, oh, we've got a massive reduction in hiring. AI is making us so much more efficient. I pulled up their stock price. It's down 60% year to date. And I was like, well, I don't know. Is it that you're reducing hiring because AI is making your whole team more efficient, or because you're seeing, a decrease in your stock price and a reduction in your sales? But whether it's real or not, I would say the AI washing is having a massive psychological impact on employees. Maybe people on this call, about 40% of people are now worried about their jobs being lost to AI. I acknowledge and recognize that I am not helping that case because I am here arguing that so much of management is changing in the era of AI. Um, and employees are really worried, 60 more than 60%, that their leaders don't understand the emotional impact of how this is changing and the dynamics this is bringing to cultures and organizations. So if we TLDR, what are we here? Skills are changing. The required skills for the jobs, whether they're ICs, builders, or managers, measurers, the skills for the jobs are certainly changing. Companies are still pressured to cut costs, still pushing for profitability or to reinvest in some of the AI expenses they're having. And ultimately, the managers are caught in the crossfire. But if the manager job's going away, your ICs are still unhappy. Almost 40% of individual contributors feel directionless after management cuts. 70% of an employee's engagement actually comes from their manager. I love to always say people join companies and quit managers. And so if you have no manager to quit, it makes the quit that much easier. So I think we need to think about what our role is in engaging employees in this era. And it's important because Gallup's reporting that employee engagement is falling for the second straight year. And so I think look, I don't have great answers, but I bring the data to say manager jobs are being eliminated, whether they should or shouldn't, they are. The manager job is changing, and some of the skills that we were expected to do as managers have been eliminated or replaced by AI. And three, cultures and individual contributors and managers are all kind of suffering in this space. So, what I want to talk about is a little bit around what skills are coming, and what our responsibilities can be. And I want to challenge you all a little bit to think about how you spend your day, and what you can do to up-level yourselves in this era. This was my template given to me by my first time I became a director, first time I was a manager. The CEO said, "This is how I run all of my one-on-ones. Amanda, I want you to start your update with me on people. How are the people doing? I want to then talk about projects. What's the project status? What are the tasks? Whatever it is. And then processes. This is what I want to talk about." And so really what my job was became synthesizing status updates, right? So if we're going to talk about projects, like, okay, I'm going to go to this team meeting and this team meeting and this team meeting so that when I meet with the CEO, I can give him the direct feedback about what is going on. I was writing a summary because I wanted to at least go to that meeting prepared, or I was preparing board slides, right? And you're synthesizing and summarizing and kind of getting the materials together. I was then cascading back, right? So, oh, the CEO doesn't want to do this, wants to do this. Like, how can I take that information back and manage down and turn that strategy into tasks? I was really trying to spend time supporting individuals and encouraging growth and coaching, but I also knew how to do the job. I think the one thing that is changing for me now is that I don't know how to do the jobs, the tasks that a lot of people are doing today. Answering questions. Certainly that was what a lot of one-on-ones. Where are you blocked? Where can I get you unstuck? How can I help? Let's set up a meeting. I was laughing with a friend the other day who was lamenting her role and said, "Oh my God, I can't do another cross-functional meetup to discuss the drop-down menu." And I was kind of laughing, and I was like, "Oh my God, I spent half my life in the cross-functional meetup to discuss the insert shared feature across the team." But those days are going away, as much of that can be automated and coordinated without us. And then my one-on-ones were really just the paper shifting between strategy down, reporting up. And this is when I think about Jensen having 60 direct reports, that's insane. But on the other hand, if you don't have to do the reporting up and the cascading is down, is happening, and the teams have access to the information, maybe it actually does scale and becomes much more effective. So how do we get ourselves as people managers out of admin work and AI work and more into what can really be impactful? To push the conversation a little bit forward, I want to drop in the chat, who is doing something, like, what's one thing on your to-do list? I'm old, I use paper. What's one thing on your to-do list this week that AI should probably be doing? Let's put the comments in here, and I'm going to have to figure out how to move my little boxes around to get chat. Who's got an idea? When did engagement ever go up? I see that. Come on, guys, work with me. Stop multitasking and contribute. Please, invoicing. Yes. Oh my God. Yeah, the weekly report. Scheduling
Yes.
meetings. Yes. Yes. Postmortems. Oh, competitive intel. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So we all know and have a list of things on our to-do list that we know AI can do maybe better for us. Um, I'm curious to talk in a little bit about what the blockers are to letting AI do that. Oh, performance reviews. Oh, I've got a great hack on that one. But how we can unblock ourselves and really make time for what's important. So this is my hypothesis of what our jobs need to evolve into if we get out of the weekly report. Latha, yeah, let's go. Thank you.
Sorry, this is a question on your previous slide,
Yeah,
which is
let's.
about when you talked about the cross-functional part of it. I know it was said as an anecdote part, but how are you seeing the cross-functional? Because in some parts of the industry, they are saying if you bring that emotional intelligence for cross-functional management, that is a plus right now in the era of AI. But on the other hand, all this task coordination and like decision repetition, reviews, etc., can be. So I'm just trying to understand the juxtaposition of these two that I'm hearing.
Yeah.
So
I think the EQ and emotional intelligence particularly helps and is impactful when, or what I'm seeing and experiencing is the EQ is particularly helpful when there's friction that can't be unblocked. The same problem comes up in the cross functional thing every time.
yeah,
But to the extent that the cross functional thing can be sorted without a meeting, it's really accelerating things. And so, specifically, as I think about how I spend my day, and I've tried to pivot myself, I use my EQ when I find there's a cross functional thing that's come up 2 or 3 times. So I have, this isn't a future slide, but because it's pertinent, one of the things I do is I have Claude run against all public Slack channels in our company. And for the past week, tell me the top 3 areas of disconnect in the company that you're seeing. And honestly, 2 out of 3 times I've heard something about it, but I don't know exactly what it is. 1 out of 3 times I had no idea what was happening, right? Like it's a product manager and a salesperson arguing in some support channel about some customer need that I had no idea. And I'm like, oh, fuck, that renewals in like 60 days. We got to get on top of that. So sometimes it's surprises, but more often it's, something that I've heard about. And when it repeats itself, that's when I use the EQ to pull the people into the room, the
yeah,
the proverbial Zoom room. And I'm like, what's going on here? Like, and I blame Claude. Claude has told me, Claude's the tattletale now. Claude has told me that, this has been an issue ongoing for 2 or 3 weeks. Why can't we get this resolved? You know,
okay.
let's have the cross functional huddle. But yeah, I think I do think what's hard about this era is we're going to be expected to do we're going to be challenged to do so much more or so much more intense work. We have to figure out how to filter out what can be automated. And I think the resistance or the hold back on automating is figuring out when to automate is the skill. Yeah. But I think that speaks to my first one on this slide, which is we really need to be thinking about how we can design systems that work without us. But at the same time, because we're now expected to be contributors, not that managers aren't contributors, don't take my words out of context. Managers are important. But because we also have to have our own deliverables and our own work streams, we have to be curious in the tooling, on the field, really understanding the problems, but also designing the systems and thinking about how to ask better questions and challenge the teams to do it better. So I think the altitude of our role is going to go much higher and much lower at the same time, which is hard. But I think we need to think of ourselves as system designers, and the best way to design a system, whether that's sales, whether that's invoicing, whether that's product management, whether that's development, figure out the system, but the best way to figure out the system is to also be a participant in the process. And I think that's going to be expected at this point. The other challenge is direction driver, right? Like one of the things I feel in my organization is, the push to shape the vision, because AI is always going to give the known answer, the expected answer. But I think a lot of leaders and companies and individuals and those who thrive need to have the vision that is bigger or outside of the scope of what's known with AI. So push like, oh, yes, between the two things we can do this, but honestly, this is the direction we're going, and constantly pushing and reminding and focusing on the outcome we're driving to over the individual tasks or deliverable or thing that we have to make sure that maybe isn't important anymore, to be honest with you. Maybe the outputs don't matter, and it's really the outcome that you need to keep holding and framing everybody for. But certainly you won't be able to understand all the outputs in this AI world where productivity just goes crazy. Culture setter. So Latha, to your point, I think we have to be the ones who are setting the tone, not just bringing the EQ, but also setting the tone around it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to experiment. It's okay to learn. It's okay to, wow, we did this thing. We screwed that up. Like I had a piece of user feedback come back in this morning. I'm copied on all the user support things because I'm a product person at heart and that's what I care about. And literally a user wrote like, this thing is AI slop. And I was like, ooh. But the old me would have been like, shut that down. How do we release that feature without good quality? And now the new me is like, okay, we need to do better by the users. Like, what can we do to like reduce the slop? How do we make that happen? And then tastemaker. I think the other thing that I spend a lot of time on in my company and frankly wrestling with is how to celebrate and encourage AI use, but reduce the tendency to send out the like M dash overly sycophantic update. Like, how do I make sure that the taste, whether it's a design or a feature idea or a PRD or a status update, doesn't look like median anthropic output and looks more like good, high quality, top work. And so I mean, I'm thinking right now of a couple people on my team that I regularly have this conversation with where I'm like, hey, I loved this update from your team, but also these three things are like very mediocre conclusions. And I want you to force your team to think more and think more critically and challenge them on how not to get to the known basic answer, but really use the judgment to get to the good answer and raise the bar.
Amanda, I do want
Yeah.
to just break in. Thank you so much. It looks like Alex M has an interesting point about focal length versatility. Alex, do you want to get on the call with us and talk a little bit more? Sounds like Claire had a couple of questions around that too for you.
I can, and I think Amanda knows this concept. You certainly are demonstrating it as you're talking. So, in my career, I've worked with some leaders who have this incredible ability to basically steward the big picture and continue to paint it in front of their teams, whilst at the same time being able to dive very deep into the detail of execution. And I think in this very challenging era of leadership, and I agree with your four themes, Amanda, although I think there's another one as well, but come to that in a minute. But that this idea of focal length versatility, the ability to go from micro macro, and see the context of each, is a superpower, and we all need them in our teams, whether or not we can do them ourselves.
I love that. I never heard that expression before, but that is great. And how do you coach people on that? How do you teach people that?
Well,
how do you hire for that, maybe?
Well, actually, I do think it's, the classic interview question, tell me about a time. I do think it's something that you can have people explain that facet of their leadership via example. But I think you'll agree with me as well, Amanda, that product people naturally do this. They're naturally good at it as they become more senior, and and that's because we are generalist, and perhaps more leaders, senior leaders with less generalism, find it harder to develop.
I like that. Claire, you had questions on, does it get less taxing with time and reps?
I don't have anything to add to the question. It was actually sort of leading. My experience is that it is easier with time and reps, but I wanted to see if that was consistently held across this group.
Others? Well, Alex, because you bravely went off mute, do you find it easier?
I do, to be quite honest. I worked with a very smart guy who sometimes said you have to let some fires burn, and that and his leadership basically helped me know that at any given time there's only so many priorities you can manage, but your key skill as a leader is to know that they are the right priorities. So I think I'm much better, even as a product person, at basically relinquishing some detail in product, for example. Yeah.
I love that.
You learn what doesn't matter.
Yeah. But yeah, and yes, you learn what doesn't matter, but then you also work on that instinct, or I don't know, gut or whatever it is, on what does matter. Yeah, I have certainly let go of the wrong things, and focused on the wrong things too. But like the ability to sort quickly is the hard skill. Yeah, Kim.
I was just going to say I was going to add something to this, but I want to cater towards the audience. It looks like Aura Greenberg. Do you want to talk a little bit about your question?
Yeah, just to the point about being able to see the bigger picture and then and how do we intentionally build that? Yes, and I know we're here to talk about ourselves as leaders and how do we build that? But I think about that as we build leaders in our organizations, how do you intentionally build that skill? And I think it can be. I think there's some roles and technology that will force you to have a bigger picture, even as you're building kind of the detail. But I think it's something that we'd have to intentionally hone for ourselves and be able to kind of pass down to our teams. And I think earlier in the careers of leaders than we had previously thought. Like you might need to be working on this. Somebody who's like 1 or 2 years out of school, if they don't have it, start honing that skill then, because we're going to be asked to have that skill early in our career.
I love this. And I think this is certainly something we're seeing in this like builder era, this developer era. So where, 5 years ago, a junior developer, to your point, Aura, would come in and like spend some time rooting around in the code, do a couple of bug fixes, like take time to ramp. The expectation now is that a junior person can come up to speed quickly, given all the AI tooling, to kind of get the big picture, but then also needs to be competent enough to get into the weeds or the details, because that's where the code changes are happening. And so maybe the future of we're all builders, which I know is like something I hear basically every 10 minutes of my life. Maybe that is like the key skill of the future that we need to hone in ourselves and in our team.
And I think there was also posts around business acumen. I think that includes that again earlier kind of in the career too, even for the technical teams.
Yeah, we're seeing business acumen / like customer intimacy. And so like really understanding the customer and the user, and where I think about talking to leaders where their companies are making these changes, or even in our organization where we're struggling in places and pockets with change, it's the people who maybe don't want to expand this aperture, whether it's up and down or left or right. I don't know how to like visualize it, but the people who are not as comfortable getting out of the weeds to see the big picture, whether that's business acumen or customer intimacy or all of it, is making it harder. Yeah. Thank you guys. This is good. Because I don't have answers. I only have problems. I think one thing I did want to touch on, as as I was thinking about this, and I was really wrestling with like, am I good? Am I bad as a manager in my like kind of AI enablement? Have I really pushed myself and my team? Worked on this framework around good, better, best, and I will just jump ahead around where I've rated myself. And so I think about, or I challenge you all to think about where you are. But how often are you using your AI tooling? If we have to become systems designers, but also this kind of player coach situation, it's very hard to, in my experience, give sweeping, big, grandiose adoption goals or impact goals or expectations unless you're in it all day, every day. And so building, failing, messing with, I know Anthropic came out with a new model today. Like there's all sorts of chatter in my company are like, okay, now is this going to be the one where we were doing Claude, now we're doing Coex, now we're going back to Anthropic. Like just being in the details to see and continue to refine. It's moving so fast. You have to make time to use it yourself at an intimate level. The tendency, I think I see the next level in terms of leadership for AI is not just how are you fixing your workflows, slide preparation, synthesis, email crafting, outreach, whatever it is. How are you creating workflows for your team? So how are you sharing it across the pieces? How are you using it across the organization? And then given all the change and uncertainty, how are you really setting the tone, the emotional intelligence, the psychological safety to figure out or help people push forward, even when you're not in the room? What is the direction, even when leadership is not sitting there telling you to push harder, to keep changing, to keep experimenting. So some of the things that I've had to live through and am living through is like both getting my hands dirty in a very humble way. I think, the 10-year ago me would have been very proud to be, the CEO that has somebody doing everything and I can spend my time synthesizing and thinking. The reality is like, I do so much more of my own product creation more than ever. And I do that because it's the only way I can learn the tools and stay on top. But also it's the humility of like asking my DevOps lead for help on this thing, just to understand how it works. I think continuing to focus on the outcome has been really critical. Less clarity on who does work or how the work gets done and more on the outcomes. Reinforcing a culture and environment with failure. I talked about that. Calling out the slop. Talked about that. I do spend a lot of time calling out slop. And apparently my customers do too, which is humbling. Back to the first bullet point. The other shift we're seeing, and I challenged some of you all to think about this, is you're both doing the hiring as well as looking for your new role. We're having a lot more conversations about how you can interview and assess for someone's ability to learn or deal with the rate of change. To Claire's comment on like pace of change is a wild ride, which I think may be the understatement of the century. Finding out people who are comfortable working in that environment, thriving in that environment is very hard. And then at the end of the day, I'm using my time to manage the energy and clarity of direction. I honestly have a really hard time keeping up with who's doing what, but trying to set that pace and that comfort with figuring those things out. So a couple hacks that I'm using as my like manager toolkit, where AI is helping me. So I talked about the weekly team alignment check, news and trend spotter, kind of a basic one, but it actually is really helpful. Things I forget to do. Top deal tracking. So this is one that doesn't necessarily save me time as much as it saves the team time. So what is the latest in these deals? What's going on with this? Review Gong calls, review Salesforce, review Slack, bring me the latest, and then customer issues. I think it is forcing us as a company to do a lot more documentation. It's also forcing us to have more clarity on data access, and actually open the kimono and a lot more data access than maybe we ever would have done before. And I am loving that it doesn't have the human bias. I think the thing I have grown to appreciate is, we all know this, like our people are managing up to us, right? And so they're trying to manage the message. And I think if I asked my head of sales or my head of customer success or my head of product, like, what are the top issues? What are the top deals? They would give me a set of answers, but they may not be as authentic and fact-based, which is, I hear you, Sandra. I know it has biases, but I think it's interesting when you ask it by how it made those decisions and how it prioritized. Maybe it's not the same biases is what I'm appreciating, but getting the visibility into what is really going on out there at a different level and a different fidelity. I'm going to skip the next slide, and actually I'm going to skip the next 2 slides, and I want to push more towards a conversation. I guess given all of this, what is the one manager skill you're most worried about losing relevance? The one thing that you maybe are particularly great at, and maybe is going away over the next couple of years that you see. So what do you think is going to lose relevance over the next couple of years as AI continues to get more efficient or proficient? Who's worried about direction setting becoming less relevant for humans and more important for AI to do? No takers. Okay, who's worried about culture building? No one's worried about culture building. I am shocked. Okay,
No,
Claire
I
and
am.
Kim, we're going to have a conversation.
I'm mute.
Yeah. Thanks, Eric. Coaching, who's worried about coaching going away? Yes. And then technical judgment, who's worried about some of the craftsmanship and technical judgment? All right. So I guess for coaching, what are you guys doing in this era for coaching? What are the coaching needs, and what are both for you and for your team, and who's got any either great ideas or great problems to avoid out there? Amelia, I saw you went off mute. Was that intentional
I
or
was
no?
just going to speak to the challenge of
Oh.
coaching in that it already takes time to coach effectively and to tailor your coaching. It's already an upward battle to convince managers that, a coaching conversation structured around thoughtful questions is going to, in the long run, develop a far better performer and a more trusting relationship, which, will give you ROI twofold. But with the pace of work with AI, to be honest, the dichotomy of speeds just seems more uncomfortable because they're so much more different.
And is the push then for more, whatever,
I'm
people
concerned that
change,
people
less coaching?
won't be even as likely to dig into coaching because it feels that much slower and because we're farther from the nitty-gritty of each other's work.
Yeah, I'm finding coaching a lot harder because I don't really understand a lot of the details. Has anybody got some good things they're doing on coaching or ways?
Well, I think Claire has a great question that we also want to address as well. So I want to make sure that we get to Claire's question. But I also think that there's something that we haven't discussed yet, which is setting the identity and understanding the identity of the organization, understanding the way that the team is representing the identity of the organization, trying to depersonalize some of these things, and in order to become a bit more of okay, at work we have a team mentality, there's collaboration, there's cooperation, there's even some conflict and tension. And I think that in a way work has become way too personal, way too much of people's identity, and there is an opportunity to reset some of that into this work is a collaborative effort. None of us have ever done it alone anyway, and AI is just exposing more of that. There is an identity that we can all take, which is an understanding that there is a team one. And once we understand that, direction gets set a little bit easier, but also relayed and understood at a much more comprehensive team level. And I think coaching then becomes less personal, which talks a little bit to what Claire is saying. I also think that it's not just the leader's responsibility it really is starting with the individual IC as well. They have 50% of the responsibility to do the work on themselves, to come in emotionally prepared, emotionally mature with the emotional capacity. They need to have a level of EQ as well in order to be able to actually receive any of this. Because leaders, we can all be the best leader, but if people don't have some of these basic human skills, it doesn't matter how much coaching, doesn't matter how much vision setting, doesn't matter how much anybody is great at what they do, being a leader and doing all this stuff. The person you're just watering, you're watering a fake plant. You know what I'm saying? You're not watering a real plant. You're just going to water this fake plant. So that's really the conversation I'm hoping to have as well. And forgive me, Amanda, I'm not trying to be too provocative, but like, my thought is as a lot of leaders are going back to ICs, I actually see hope where people who are leaders who realize that on the other end, they needed to cultivate this within themselves, that then they become peers of ICs, and they're like, hey, this is how we can be a better IC so that our leaders can be better leaders. And like that can start to become more of the conversation. Okay, forgive me if I just broke in and just blew some things up.
No, I love that. What are people's responses?
That was great. I'm all for, I don't teach coaching anymore without teaching how to receive feedback. So
Yeah.
even if a team or an organization doesn't think they need it, I don't teach one without the other. So it's a part of just performance and coaching culture. But no, I love and appreciate the comments.
I'd like to, this is Shalini, I'd like to maybe just share an example of what I see happening at my company. I work for a larger company, and I think this may be part of the pattern that you're seeing in somewhat larger companies in general. I do agree that the coaching aspect is suffering. And I think there's this assumption, and maybe this will change because AI is evolving rapidly, but there's been this assumption that AI will make people more efficient and you can produce more things. And so what's happening is they're telling people, we expect you to do more work. They're not giving coaching or training support on more and more AI tools. That's turning into a you go figure it out on your own. And so the people who would traditionally do maybe more of the coaching role have also been put in the same position of, hey, my time is now dedicated to keeping up with things that I have to teach myself. And so I do see that shrinking from a person to person and like mentorship interaction. It's not taking away from maybe, I would say, general coaching on how to perform or how to thrive or how to speak to people. But it is taking up some room. But I am seeing that people are starting to recognize that. They're recognizing the fallacy of giving people more work, but then also assuming that they'll just learn how to do it without some sort of mechanism in place. And so that may be what I look forward to seeing change back to a more common sense approach over the next few months.
Yeah, I think we're definitely living through that. Yeah, Alex, go ahead.
I've spent the last 18 months or so working in employee engagement after having worked a while back in L&D.
God bless you.
And I wonder if AI isn't the big opportunity to create much more contextually aware, much more personalized coaching at a scale that was never going to be possible before. I think where Microsoft is going with all of their HR tech gives them the ability to unify things in a way that's going to be really, really valuable. Potentially a little bit dystopian, but so much of what we're talking about, could be dystopian if used the wrong way. But I'm quite positive about where we can go with coaching.
We are seeing, just on like the tactical functional coaching, some interesting things we've done is, particularly on our go-to-market team, we have scorecards. Everybody has their sales methodology, and you have stages and all the things that you're supposed to push through Salesforce. And we have specific coaching messages that come to each rep before each call. Here's the context of the meeting. Here's your goals for the meeting. Here's what you need to do. Here's who's attending the meeting. And then after the meeting, reviewing the gong call. Here's how you did. Here's what you happened. And then here even is the specific follow-up you should send based on the call, based on the stages, based on the people in the meeting and what we saw in the transcript. And so the humans are still in the loop, but I do think you're right, Alex. That is a level of coaching. Every call gets reviewed for every single rep, which is never something we would have funded as a company before. There aren't enough RevOps humans in the world to make that happen, but that is how we are seeing coaching really be much better with AI. It doesn't solve the coaching up challenges, the humans, the being receptive to feedback, all of those problems have existed long before AI and will outlive everybody on this call. But yeah, there's definitely a lot that can be possible, which frees up the coaching time for when the humans need to do the coaching and have the harder or the more gnarly conversations. David?
Yes. First of all, I'd just like to say this, that your edginess has made me feel very comfortable. I'm tired of everybody being so politically correct about these topics. That you have to have difficult conversations.
Oh, it's a shit show out there. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it is. And as somebody that worked on Wall Street once, I don't mind you using those words. So it's fine. But I think the larger conversation, and the one I'd like to have with you offline, so I didn't get your contact information yet, but I'd love to, is it's AI doesn't exist in a vacuum. There's like 16 million other things that are changing in the world at the same time. And I think a lot of people just like look at it through this lens of like the ant on the sidewalk with the little magnifying glass, and there's they don't see the rest of the sidewalk. They only see that one ant with the magnifying glass. And that's a very old analogy, but I think org charts in this form, I think, are short-lived because you're going to need more people to say, does this output make any sense? The real conversation is how do you get the right combination of customers, business people, and techs in the room? How does low code, no code eventually make the business user the coder? And these are elephants in this room that we didn't even get to explore in this fascinating 1 hour conversation that you've led. But I think there are conversations that need to be had. So, number one, I'd like to talk with you more. But just two, I think you're talking about the edge of something that has multiple other layers, and people aren't thinking about it that way, especially at C-level leadership levels.
I love it. Let's do part 2. Yeah. There's a lot that is changing out there. And I think we're seeing the bottleneck shift from code production to like, are we even thinking through what we're building? And then the next one is like, how does the go-to-market team absorb it? And then even on this, to pull it back to coaching, like even the coaching, we call our coaching bot Big Ben. It doesn't matter why, it's a long story, but even Big Ben adoption is hard because the reps are like just bombarded with context and coaching, and they're like overwhelmed. And so how do we synthesize and really prioritize what is most important as opposed to the noise? Yeah.
Before we go on, could we, Claire Gagney, it looks like, forgive me if I've not pronounced your name correctly, you've had a couple of comments in the chat that I think you might want to talk to a little bit. And then we do have that survey, Amanda, that I want to throw up as you continue to answer some questions.
Yeah, we can do the survey at any time, whenever it's good for you. Yeah.
If you don't mind, I'll go ahead and do that. So Claire, if you want to talk a little bit and ask your questions, provide some of your comments.
Sure.
It looks like you've,
I was curious, Amanda, what you've seen successful about in fostering psychological safety while also pushing people outside of their comfort zones. For example, calling out AI slop, which we all know is a critical thing to do and raise the bar for what people are delivering. But also there's that real human element of like, oh, if I mess up publicly, then it's scary. And it's already scary that AI is maybe taking parts of my job that in some cases I've spent decades, building towards. And so I'm really curious how you're managing for that, because obviously making people feel safe truly is essential to having their full attention in their jobs. And I'm also wondering if there's anything new you're doing there relative to how you would have managed that prior to the AI era.
Yeah, no, I would love to hear if people have new ways of managing that. I mean, I think this has always kind of been the challenge. I mean, a little, maybe it all comes down to coaching in life, but the coaching comment is real. I think it's praising failures, praising publicly and correcting privately. I think one of the things that hasn't scaled or done well for me on that is sometimes things like taste are really hard to coach, like slop. Like I'll be honest, like I have a couple people on the team who kind of like the slop. Like, I mean, AI, we all know, has a little bit of a sycophantic bias. It's maybe getting better, maybe it's not. And it's the median answer. So it works for most of the people in the middle. And so I think there's always I always wrestle with, and I just find I have to get very specific in the details and just say like, prove it back to me or talk it back to me. Like, why would you say this? Would you actually say this? I also think as an organization, as it relates to taste and slop, like as we've adopted it broadly, people can spot it, right? And so that helps that you're not the only one who's reading all of it and being like, but, and then, a lot of our tooling and workflows are owned and managed by the company or standardized by the company. And so we have put a lot of context engineering in around how we want the tone to be. Which helps to the extent that we can keep people on the rails. But I mean, I this has always been the problem of, it's not even new technology. It's always anything like, right? I want you to try, I want you to experiment, I want you to get better, I want you to push yourself, but at the same time, you're going to fail. And so how do I hold you close and help you fail? But also you can't fail too often or we got to work together, the organization. But that also, I mean, I don't know who said it before, like these are just age-old management problems that AI will probably never fix, unfortunately. And maybe we'll just accelerate, but that's how it goes.
Yeah, the acceleration
yeah, go ahead.
and my experience as well, just to my other comment, the train can go off the rails more decisively and faster than ever before. Especially if people aren't talking to each other and they're relying on, an AI tool to give them not just the answers to the thing they're asking, but also emotional support, which we've certainly seen at my company. And so I found that actually intervening with coaching and with clarity about what matters, why, how we do things, and pointing to specific examples faster than ever before is really the only move that works.
Yeah. I'm recognizing we have 1 minute to go, so I want to be respectful of your time. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. I hope I set the expectations clearly at the beginning that I have no answers, only questions or problems, but at least some shares. So I guess if I could leave you with any guiding advice, I think step one is just recognizing like this manager smush is coming, the great flattening, whatever is here, be aware of it. Two, think about what you can in your day-to-day automate. With AI, I mean, we all had a list of things that we're doing that we know AI can do. And so take the time, take the pulse to create those workflows for yourself, create those skills, do the thing that will give you the time because the work is not going to reduce and it's only coming faster. And then three, keep the conversation going. Like what I would have said was possible with AI 6-12 months ago is not what I'm saying is today. And so continuing to have these conversations with your peers, with your friends, just know and keep up with what's going on. I think making the time to keep up is hard. Look, I'm a mom of 2 kids. I'm running a company. I live in this weird San Francisco echo chamber. But you got to carve out the time because if you don't, it's going to pass us all by. So I hope to leave you with a little bit of push and a nudge to get out there and experiment. And Kim, thank you for moderating and hosting. Do we have any closing things we need to do or we're good to wrap?
How do we get in touch with you, Amanda?
Oh, yeah. Well, the only social channel I manage is LinkedIn. You can contact me there, or I will put my email address right here in the chat. It's very simple, amanda@coderpad.io. Would love to hear more about what you're doing and always happy to share what we're hearing and seeing in more detail. And look forward to talking to you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, everybody, for being so incredibly engaged, for sharing your own stories, your own ideas, some of you, your own questions and thoughts. I think this is going to be a topic that I'm pretty confident this is going to be a topic that we're just now starting to have the discussions around. And it's not a topic that we haven't been talking about. We're just going to have a different version of it. So, Amanda, I suspect we might want to have a different version of this sometime in the future, or maybe not even 6 months, considering the velocity of change. But thank you, everybody, for joining us today. The replay is on Sidebar's YouTube channel. It will be up in a couple of days. Thank you so much, and have a great, optimistic rest of your day. There is hope. There is hope.
Thanks, Kim. All right, good to see everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.